Now, we are slowly getting to the end of this current financial year and moving into the next one. And that means the budget making process for the year 2021-2022 is already in play. In fact, it is getting towards the tail end of the process. And that involves lots of consultations between the Budget and Appropriations Committee in Parliament, Treasury, and the various ministries that are put together in sector working groups. So we now have what might look like the draft budget that will be presented on the floor of the House by the Treasury. So tonight we're going to give you some highlights of what this budget is looking like and most importantly what it means for you. It has been touted as a COVID recovery budget and one that provides stimulus as well. And as usual, the numbers continue to grow. This is the size of our budget for the year 2021-2022. It stands at 3.632 trillion shillings. Now, this is the total amount we hope to spend in that financial year. Now, usually when they give that statement, they then start to give allocations to the various, resources that will be required for this. So we'll take a look at this, and this is the number that I want you to keep really at the top of your mind throughout this explainer tonight. Our ordinary revenue collection is projected to be at 1.775 trillion shillings, all right? So keep that at the back of your mind. So this is what we hope to spend on recurrent expenditure, running costs, everyday costs, keeping the country running, basically ministries and keeping those running. That budget is at 2.09 trillion. Development expenditure, infrastructure, building roads, schools is at 624.5 billion shillings. That figure for our ordinary revenue collection, that's through taxes that you and I pay every day, whether it's through goods and services that we consume or through income tax, payee and that sort of thing, is at 1.775. Please note, what we are collecting at 1.775 is not even enough to keep the country running. The budget recurrent is at 2.09 trillion shillings. So again, keep that ordinary revenue collection figure in mind. It usually gets a little more to about 2 trillion shillings. That's when you add appropriations in aid and grants as well. But important to note that that is the money we collect. That is essentially the country's salary. All right. Now, in the budget, we also do allocations to the various arms of government. The executive expected to spend 1.83 trillion. The judiciary's budget is at 18.05 billion shillings. And then we have Parliament that is expected to get 37.7 billion shillings to run its affairs for the next financial year. Again, remember that figure we talked about, our ordinary revenue collection. That's our salary as a country, 1.775 trillion. Let me just take you back to this other figure. That 1.775 trillion is not even enough to fund the executive. And when we talk about the executive, it's not just the office of the president, but it's the entire executive. So you have the ministries, you have the office of the president, you have the office of the deputy president, all ministries, state departments, parastatals. The amount of money we collect is not even enough to run the executive, let alone the judiciary, let alone Parliament, and then we even have our development budget. So that means, ladies and gentlemen, we have a deficit of 952 billion shillings that will have to be plugged somehow, all right? And usually you know how that goes. That will come from borrowing. And remember, there's also about 500 billion shillings that is expected for debt redemption. That is, excuse me, paying the debts that we owe. So how would you fund this? Typically through taxes and borrowing. Are we likely to see some more taxes, increase in taxes? Perhaps, because there is a statement at the end of that issue that was given by Treasury talking about Treasury's desire to amend these laws. Income Tax Act, VAT Act, Excise Duty Act, Tax Procedures Act, Miscellaneous Fees and Levies Act. These are all laws that have to do with taxes. The Capital Markets Act, Central Depositories Act, all the way to the Retirement Benefit Act and the KRA, that's the Kenya Revenue Authority Act. So I know these acts mean a lot, but let me give you an example of just what these might mean for you if they speak about amending them. So, first of all, with respect to the VAT Act, there is goods that are exempt from VAT. that are zero rated, and there are others that then, have VAT subjected to them. That's 16%. Bread is one of the things you will look out for in this new budget that is set to go up, because it has been moved from the zero rated category to one that attracts VAT. Also, I know you've just noticed, if you haven't already bought your next gas cylinder, you will note that LPG, that's liquid petroleum gas, also now attracting VAT 16%. I think it's set to go up by about 300 shillings if it hasn't already, so please prepare for that. When it comes to the Excise Duty Act, well, there's a 15% excise duty that is now going to be imposed on imported motorcycles. Now, this is supposed to give reprieve to those who assemble locally, but the cost of doing business for them has to go lower. So if there are those who are importing motorcycles, think of the boda industry, they will attract a 15% excise duty. Now, also to mention the new taxes that you saw that were put in January, that's the digital services tax and the minimum tax. The minimum tax is currently suspended temporarily following a court process. We wait to see how that process goes. But as you can see, definitely some more taxes and some tougher times ahead when it comes to the budget, which takes effect in June. That is my explainer for you tonight. Hopefully some basic understanding of the budget and indeed what it means for you going forward.